It is a brand new edition of Flyers Daily, a Monday edition. Mondays with Meltzer, Flyers Daily, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. And this season, Flyers also teaming up with Penn Medicine for the Penn Medicine Assist, which means that every Flyers assist this season, Penn Medicine and the Flyers will donate 30 pounds of food to local communities in need. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we see some assists coming up tomorrow night in San Jose. They've given up a couple of goals lately. We'll talk about that with our Monday guest. You read his work at PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyBuzz.com. It is Bill Meltzer. Bill, the Sharks can't keep it out of their net right now. They've given up 10 in each of their last two, I should say.
20 goals in 2 games, yep, and still looking for their first win, and the Flyers need to avoid a repeat because if you remember, San Jose was winless last year coming into Philadelphia, and they shut the Flyers out. So no repeats.
The funny thing about that game that you just mentioned, we're going to talk about that in just a second because there's some important parallels to the game that took place on Saturday night between the Flyers and the Kings. But Bill, I'm going to give you a little quiz here. I'm going to say, guess the coach, guess the player. Okay, let me read you this quote. He said, the coach said, I'm coaching a team. The guys who are going to play, everything is earned. When the game starts, it's not about your name. It's about what's on the front of your jersey and who we believe are going to give us a chance to win. We know player X can make a difference when he's skating and he's involved. And tonight I felt it wasn't there. We're going to play the guys who are playing. Doesn't matter who you are. It's about the blank team. And I didn't like his game. Who's the coach and who's the player?
Vincent, and it was about Johnny Gaudreau.
It was Pascal Vincent, the head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he said that after the Blue Jackets 2-1 loss against the Capitals the other night. And we obviously know Johnny Gaudreau was the big free agent signing there, and a really important player to that team. But that is a message that resonates with a lot of coaches in today's NHL. And what we saw in Saturday's game with the Flyers was their first-round pick, Cam York, obviously not as established as an NHLer as Johnny Gaudreau, but we saw him sit for the third period, and I think he may have earned it.
It was a really rough night for Cam. 3 different goals were in various ways. He was part of the issue on them. The first one, the Kempa goal, it's a bouncing puck, and rather than looking for his man to check, he swung at the bouncing puck, and his guy went and scored. I was actually, not to get too off topic here, but I was sitting next to Joe Watson, the Flyers Hall of Fame defenseman, and Joe hit the roof over a defenseman swinging at a bouncing puck and not looking for the guy to check and letting the goalie handle the bouncing puck. Yeah. Just the wrong play in the wrong situation. Then there's the delay of game penalty, puck over the glass under no pressure at the time. And he must have put it 10 feet over the glass. I mean, that was just a really, really bad play there. And then, there one at the end of the period, and he's on the ice for that one too. And that one really was shot between Sanheim's skates, and that was one really that Peterson should have had. But still, it was a -3 night for York. He kind of earned it. Sat the rest of the night, and mind you, sitting the rest of the night too. He still played a lot of minutes in 2 periods, right?
Over 15 and a half,
over 15 and a half in just 2 periods, and that's because Igor Zamula was having a tough game, and Torres has to kind of manage Louis Belpedio's minutes. Yeah. So it was really not waving the white flag on that game, even though it was already 4-0. But it was kind of okay. You're not going to play the right way. You're not going to play.
Yeah. And I'm going to pick. It's about me picking my spots, and I'm picking my spot.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think the thing he didn't like about the fourth goal, look, the goalie didn't do him any favors, York, on the fourth goal. I'll talk about that in a second. But it's the situational hockey. There's 20 seconds left in the period. There's no reason to try and force a play at the neutral zone, down 3-0 at that point. And then, Cal Peterson left about 2 feet too much on the short side with no threat on the other side of the ice. I'm not sure. I just don't know if he just didn't read the play or just wasn't, taking the rush seriously at that point. I don't know how to put it any other way.
Yeah.
It's egregious.
No, from outside the dot, from that just, I don't care if it did hit off of Sanheim's skate and very slightly deflect. That's a save you absolutely have to make 99 times out of 100, even if you don't see it. It's just playing the angle.
Yeah, you're just shading to the short side there because there's no threat coming down the other side.
Yeah.
But he was about 2 feet off it.
Yeah.
I mean, there was so much room on that side. I was stunned when I went back and watched it a couple of times. But so York sits down for that third period of the game. And Bill, it becomes really quickly about how does the player react? What do they do with this? And the reason why I said let's go back to that San Jose game right off the hop is because last year on October 23rd, early in the season, Flyers are off to a 4-2 start. They're facing a San Jose team that's really struggling, and it's at Wells Fargo Center. San Jose gets out to a 3-0 lead, and a couple of the Flyers players in that game were not playing to John Tortorella's standard of compete level. And not only that, but James Van Riemsdyk played 5 shifts in the game, only played 3.5 minutes because he got hurt.
Right.
So they were already down a forward, and John Tortorella opted in a 3-0 game going into the third period to bench Travis Konecny and bench Kevin Hayes in that game. So he ran 9 forwards the rest of the way. And they ended up losing the game 3-0. And that's a team you could have come back on, but that was another time for him to pick his spot. And, each player reacted to it differently. Kevin Hayes, didn't go into the coach's office, didn't go asking questions or storm in and stomp his feet. He just continued to play. Travis Konecny went in and wanted to, ask, why and come to an understanding. And we know how Konecny's season went the rest of the way. Yeah. He obviously took it and did the right thing with it because he had his best season as a pro, over a point per game, 31 goals on the year. How does Cam York respond to this? Because he is a different looking player than Travis Konecny in the way that they exert themselves on the ice.
Yeah, not much of anything rattles Cam York, which can be good. It can be not good, but it's, I'm sure he'll put it immediately behind himself and just roll on from there. It's funny. I mean, in a way, I think that Torts likes it partially and partially doesn't like it. I think maybe he'd like to see a little fire and emotion out of Cam, but that's not the player he is. So, I think, York's not going to take it personally. He knows that. It took him a long time to speak after the game on Saturday, but he did finally come out and he owned up to, his game was below the bar, significantly below the bar. So he understood why he sat. He has to go out and not just in San Jose, but have a good road trip and, to put it behind him. It's just a bump in the road here. That's really, but sometimes I think, just the situational awareness, the maturation of a young defenseman, all these are lessons he can take and learn from and grow from. And that's really, really the way to handle it.
Yeah. And I think the thing with York, he's a very, like you said before, doesn't get over emotioned. And that will pay him huge dividends in big games and big spots. But it's one of the things I think John Tortorella wants to bring that brimstone up a little bit sometimes too. We look at players like Mike Schmidt was a guy who was so smooth that never looked like he was trying because he was just so fluid in his movement. And sometimes we mistake that the players that are like that for a lack of effort. It's not the case, but I talked to John Tortorella a couple of weeks ago on Hockey and Hounds back on the middle of October. And I asked him about Cam York. And I asked him, I said, is there a killer in there? And he said, I hope so, because if not, he'll be an average player. He's got the skills, but he's got to have some killer in him. And that's what we're going to find out. And I think that it's going to be, a very push relationship with the two of them right now to get him to that level and then maintain him there, isn't it?
I think for sure. I think that, there's trial and error that's involved. I think that the fire and brimstone approach with York is not necessarily going to work, but there's ways to motivate him. Everybody has ways to motivate him. Everybody has buttons you can push.
Ice time's a big one.
That's the number one. Always been the number one. Yeah. That's something that spans every player, every generation, every team, right?
Every level, everything. Yep.
Yeah. So that's so I think I think that message got through loud and clear. In a game where you're already you have some injuries in the blue line, you have certain defensemen you're managing very carefully, and it didn't matter. It was you're not playing the rest of tonight. So I do think these upcoming games are big ones. I'm especially interested next Saturday when the Flyers are in LA, and it's another back-to-back, another situation where I think LA is going to be rested again when they play them, and in their building, Cam has to have a good game that night. That's going to be a good test for him.
Yeah, it'll be 3 and 5 days for that because they have the 2 days between San Jose and Anaheim.
Yeah.
So it's not 3 and 4, but it's still a back-to-back on the road on the West Coast. Maybe a little bit of the late night start coming up tomorrow night in San Jose at 10:30 is mitigated because we changed the clocks. Or maybe that's just me trying to convince myself. I'm not sure. Bill, Cal Peterson, we got our first look at him at the NHL level this season. We've talked about the struggles he had the last year and change in LA and in their system. He played 4 games for the Phantoms. His numbers, about a 3.8 goals against average, save percentage well under 900. Hasn't been off to a good start with 4 games with the Phantoms. And he gets in for the Flyers. And, the first 2 goals, I don't think he's got much of a chance on. I really don't. The bouncing puck and then obviously the Anze Kopitar tip is a high tip. You're just hoping that one hits you. I did not like that 4th goal in any way, shape, or form. But Carter Hart is out, and he's day-to-day right now. But I imagine we're going to see a lot of Sam Ersson because I don't know that Cal Peterson did a whole lot to solidify the trust for him to earn the crease right now.
No, for sure. I mean, you'll see Ersson in the first 2 games, and then you're in a back-to-back kind of situation. So, I didn't going into Saturday's game. Nowadays it's very rare for a goalie to go back to back. But I thought, well, he played 50 minutes in Wednesday's game, but he only saw
11 shots.
11 shots, right? And then and then that game after that too didn't really see a lot of shots in that game either. So he wasn't really a heavy workload.
And he hasn't played much to begin with.
Hasn't played much to begin with. And last year, he did a whole bunch of 3-on-3, because they have those in the American League, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
And he did the 3-for-3 multiple times last season. So I was saying it's not impossible. LA is a tough opponent and coming off of a good outing. Maybe you go back to him again. But it was the right call, even though the outcome wasn't great. And Peterson really got off to a good start. Actually, he had to do the splits in his first save, and Cal can come up with a big save. Sometimes it's the one that's stoppable that goes in that kind of has been his problem the last 2 years in LA, and so far this season with the Phantoms. And it's really kind of been 1 or 2 that he'd like to have back, and those are save percentage killers, and they lead to losses too. So. But there have been stretches of his career, even one preseason game this year, where Peterson was just amazing. It was the game in Boston, I think it was.
It was,
yeah. And I mean, he was just really severely tested in that game, and he just really stepped up nicely. So it's not that he's not capable, but you want the consistency, and that's kind of been what he's been lacking.
Yeah, I think that playing the former team that you just got traded from maybe went into the decision on Saturday as well.
Yeah.
Because I looked at, you could make the case either way, and I know analytics says split the goaltending duties, but this was obviously different. Bill, those 2 Buffalo games, can you explain hockey to me? Because, the Flyers in the first game, they outshoot them 40-15.
Yeah.
They dominate the faceoff circle, right? And they lose the game 5-2. And then the next game, they get outshot 22-19. Buffalo dominates the faceoff circle, and the Flyers win that game 5-1. I'll never understand this damn game of hockey as long as I live.
No. Well, the second one, the game in Buffalo, I mean, the ice was tilted the first period the Flyers' way, and so they went off winning 3-0, and I think scoring chances were like 11-2. It could have been even worse.
Flyers attempted 21 shots that period.
In that first period, yeah. And then the rest of the game, the Buffalo made their pushes and really Urson, he stepped up whenever they needed to with the big momentum saves. So we didn't have a ton of saves in quantity, but in terms of difficulty and situational saves, they were huge. It was really, really good start for him. I thought in the third period, the Flyers were doing a little 1-2-2 just to just to try to manage with a multi-goal lead and kind of
and a back-to-back.
Yeah, and with a back-to-back going on. So I thought that was a play a little bit too, because Flyers really didn't attack very much. And later, you had a big lead, and even so, they were still counter punching and scoring goals. And good place to mention here the defensive play that Joel Farabee made, and then feeding Brink for that really sweet breakaway goal. That was nice, and that's how you do in these games, right? Even if you're getting outshot at that point in the game, you're just dealing a death blow to counterpunch with a breakaway goal like that. That just takes all the wind out of another team's sail. So it was they managed that game really well. Even the numbers didn't show it at the end.
Yeah, I thought Brink read the play. Obviously, Farabee makes a really good play to read it and jump the lane and cause the turnover to go the other way. But Brink recognized it right away and got on his horse. And Farabee waited just till he knew Brink was by the defenseman and he could feather the pass. There was a little patience on that delivery as well. I said this to you, I think, in the press box the other night. And watching Brink, at games in person, I see him back check when nobody's watching.
Yeah.
And that's like some people go, what does that mean? It means that, it's inherent that he's going to try to get himself back into plays, even if he is seemingly out of the play, because you never know when things can kind of hold up and you can affect defending. And he seems to just back check even when nobody's looking, which tells you a lot.
No, for sure. And I'll add to that too. I think all the Flyers forwards have been back checking really well. I mean, you can't point to a guy who I think has just been, blowing the zone or everybody's bought into playing all three zones. It's been really good in that aspect.
Yeah, that's a very big thing, and that'll endear you to a coach when he goes back and looks at the film. He goes, I didn't even see him back checking in the game, but now I see it, and that's a good thing. Bill, let's talk about something else that's not good, and that's the power play. It's the third worst in the NHL. They're ranked 30th right now, 9.8%. Oddly enough, the two teams below the Flyers, one of them's the Caps, with the greatest goal scorer in the history of the game, and has made such a living on the power play. Caps are at 9.7, and the St. Louis Blues are at 3.7. Flyers are 3 times better than the Blues on the power play. That just tells you how bad the Blues power play is. I mean, Jesus, Murphy. But to me, Bill, I'm watching this power play, and I'm going, we need somebody to grab the power play and say it's coming through me. And they also look a little predictable on the power play, not working from below the dot hardly ever to out of a set position to try and open up a scoring chance. All coming from the high half wall and the point.
Yeah. I think that hits on the head. When you break down the process of a power play, obviously it's great if you can win that first draw and you get the instant possession. And Flyers actually on Saturday won a few of those. But if there's a clear, you have to take it up the ice and get the entry. Flyers had one failed entry that I remember, but the other ones got in and got set up.
A couple of real nice ones too.
Yeah, they did. They did. And
Konecny.
Yeah, both guys, Frost and Konecny. Yeah, and so they spent a lot of time in the attack zone. So that's step one of the process. But then you have to have a plan of attack, and there was no discernible plan of attack. For one thing, other teams are not afraid of the Flyers getting shots through from the point, so they can kind of take away the pass from the half wall, to the slots because they're not afraid of somebody burning you from up high. So right there, but then you have to throw different looks. Again, you can work below the goal line. You can set up a layered screen. Just throw different looks. Try to work it. If it's not working from the left wall, try running it from the right wall. Just different looks.
Giroux would flip sides once in a while just to show a different look.
Just exactly. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but at least it's not as predictable. And I thought the alignment. I know they were trying stuff, but it was strange because there were throughout in the Buffalo game too. I really like Morgan Frost as a distributor. I don't like Morgan Frost as a net front guy. That's
not his game.
That's not his game. He's small, right? And he's a pass guy. So I didn't understand that one. And Atkinson on one of the power plays, on one of them he kept just taking shots, hoping something got through. But another one, Cam is trying to be a distributor, and that's not his game. He's a shooting guy.
He's a trigger,
and it was just guys who were in the wrong spot. And it was and if they did have actually a guy in the slot and a guy going to the net, they didn't get it through. Yeah. So it was and they had a couple good keeps on that, so they had all the possession, but unless they start working some rotations that you might actually score on, it's going to be a struggle. I mean, the Flyers had that little oasis there. I guess it was the Minnesota game. I think they had 2 power play goals in that one, and then one in the Anaheim game. So other than a 5-on-3 goal in the Ottawa game, that's everything. That's it. For the season.
And one of those power play goals against Minnesota hits off the skate of the ref and ends up as a turnover right to Brink, who puts it. Yeah. So it's not even like that's a set play. It seems confounding right now. I mean, even LA, they had Drew Doughty playing the bumper late in the game on the power play. I'm going, what is going on here? But it's stunning. Speaking of Travis Konecny, he's a guy that has now played 500 NHL games, if you can believe it, Bill. Never played a game in the American Hockey League. Travis Konecny made the Flyers, and in his first year, he scores 11 goals, has 28 points in 70 games. He had the 3 24-goal seasons, and then the last one, he scored 24 in 66 games. That was the shortened season due to the pandemic. Had a couple of down years last year, had that big year, and this year he's off to a good start, 11 games. He's got 12 points, 9 of them goals, second in the NHL in goal scoring. Through 500 games, it hasn't been a straight road for Travis Konecny. It hasn't quite been the most crooked road in America, but it has not been a straight ascension. There's been some ups and downs, and it looks like he's a player really coming into his own here, 500 games in.
No, for sure. He's grown, as a hockey player and grown as a leader too. He's really started to emerge in that way. He's very self-analytical too. I found, especially nowadays. We were talking to him about leading the team in goals before Saturday's game, and he was talking about, listen, I've had 3 or 4 point-blank chances this past week that I didn't bury. And that's what a good player does. He looks at where can I be better. So that's one of the big things. They're having some bumps in the road. I remember his early days. Dave Haxtell scratched him several times, or he'd sit in third periods, or he wouldn't be used in a 1-goal game. And the one thing I remember with TK too, as a young player, he's always been ambitious, and he always said, I'd eventually like to kill penalties too. And Hack kind of grinned and he was thinking like that's never going to happen. I think that's what he was thinking at the time, because he said, well, it's good to have things to work towards. Hack's one to understate things, but but he's done it, right, and he's more of an offensive kind of penalty killer, but that can work too, and he's been really effective at it. So just to watch him grow as a player, it's crazy that he's at 500 games. It's crazy now that he's telling young players, enjoy the time. It goes fast. Right?
Yeah. How insane is that?
Kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. He's at 500 already. All right, Bill, the road trip ahead is San Jose tomorrow night, Anaheim on Friday, Los Angeles to take on the Kings on Saturday. They'll come back home, and then they'll get Carolina for a shot at redemption down in Carolina to wrap up the 4-game trip. And you look at the schedule the remainder of this month, Bill, it's not easy. This is a tough month. After they get that Carolina game, they come home, they take on Vegas, who ho-hum is unbelievable. Then they get Columbus, who's, I'm not sure what they'll be at that point. the Islanders, the Rangers, the Islanders, and the Rangers, off to a really good start. Then Carolina again in New Jersey. This is a really important stretch of result for the team, I think, and it's not an easy one from an opponent standpoint.
Not at all. I hope the Flyers can take something, not the outcome, but from the last Carolina game. Flyers dominated that third period against
they in there, didn't they?
Yeah. Again, against a very good team, and Carolina finally got a goal late and they won. But I mean, the Flyers had all sorts of scoring. They carried the play with the game on the line, and just it didn't go their way. That's how they have to approach those games. Like, don't give those teams too much respect. I mean, know what they're capable of, but attack a little bit too. If you attack and you come up short, you live with whatever it is. But that game is kind of a blueprint. And that was also a game too where, I mean, the Flyers just got eaten alive on faceoffs in that Carolina game. And
Jordan Staal.
And I mean, Stahl's been one of the best in the league for 15 years.
Yeah.
And so he's going to win 60% or more, and that night he won even more than 60%. But Konecny was winning his draws. Jarvis is winning his draws. I mean, Flyers couldn't beat anybody in the draw. But the flip side of that was, okay, they lost the faceoffs, but they didn't come out of their structure. Mm-hmm. Losing faceoffs really, Carolina didn't get much out of them. So, if you're against a team that has that much advantage on faceoffs, that's a lesson too. I mean, it's great if you can get the instant possession, but if you don't, okay, it's it's nothing imminently dangerous if you play it the right way. So, I mean, there've been a lot of elements. I'm not going to totally throw aside the LA game because it's one where you're against a team with a lot of big and talented forwards, and the Flyers didn't match up all that well, but they didn't handle the matchups all that great either.
Yeah.
And they had junctures of the game where they're in it, and then they had both in the first and second period, LA scores closely spaced goals. So you go from 0-0 to 2-0. Second period, you had a power play almost, and the one power play the Flyers almost scored on. There was a deflection about 10 feet from the net, and Talbot made one of his best saves of the game.
Yeah.
That save and stopping Atkinson the breakaway were his two biggest saves of the game. But he, kicked out his skate. He made the save when it looked like it was going to go in. All right, but you need more of that, right?
Yeah.
But still, they didn't score in that power play. Okay, then it's 3 and 4-0, and then you're done. So those situational things where they got goals bunched on them, where they had little lapses in detail that cost them dearly. When you're playing these tough games coming up, those are the things that can happen, or you will lose by multi-goal scores.
Yeah, at large margins for sure. Last thing, Bill, we'll wrap up here. I want to get an update from you on Matvei Michkov and Cutter Gauthier, because I'm on social media. I think Cutter Gauthier scores a goal every 7.5 minutes of real time.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like, and this guy just shoots from anywhere, and it just must be a hard shot to read. I think he disguises release very well, and sight lines to pucks, because when I see where he's scoring from, I'm going, he either got it to the goalie didn't see the release, or the goalie is unable to track because of where he scores from and the distance he's able to score from. And then Michkov too, an unbelievable goal the other day up the left side. Give us an update on both players.
Both guys are coming off of great weeks. Michkov had a bout with the flu about 2 weeks ago. So he came back a little slowly in the first 3 games after that. He didn't look like himself, looked a little slow reading plays, just turning some pucks over. Yeah. But then he's back to himself again. And he's coming off an unbelievable week. They lost 2-1 in overtime. Their most recent game. He figured in both goals, and honestly, if not for a couple unbelievable saves, could have had 4 points in that game. He was just every time he touches the puck, he makes magic happen. He's also a really good passer too. I didn't know what a good passer Michkov really is. I was telling him as the goal scorer till really watching him a lot this year. he can burn you in different ways.
There's a hockey IQ there, isn't there? Because I see him in board battles, and he is outsized, outmuscled, all those things, and it doesn't matter. He puts his body in positions to win board battles when he's considerably smaller and not as strong.
No, exactly. Yeah, he has a knack for coming up with those 50-50 pucks. He's really good at it. I think too that he's not Pavel Bure in terms of like straightaway speed. He's never going to be that. He's an average, just slightly above north-south skater. But I'll tell you what, on his edges, he is dangerous. When he's on his edges, he's elite.
Yeah.
So then that's just as important as straight ahead speed and the anticipation too, the quickness aspect. He materializes in scoring areas all the time, and he can score he's another guy who can score from sharp angles or and you have to watch him behind the net. He likes to try the Michigan or banking the puck, off of a skate or off the wall, or he can make so many. He uses the back of the net really, really well. Danny Briere always used the back of the net really well as a tool, and I think his upside to do that is higher than Danny's ever was.
I think you see in some of his highlights, you see an innocuous play that turns into something spectacular very quickly. What about Gauthier? What have you seen out of him?
With Gauthier, I do think that deceptive hands, lightning fast release. When he does get off a one timer, it has great movement on it, a ton of velocity behind it. He has speed too, especially for a big guy. He's a really good skater. I go back and forth with folks about this. Who think he'll be fine at center versus playing a wing. I like him better as a winger, but I can see why. You can be a shoot first center. Gauthier is always going to be a shoot first player, and I know the Flyers' organizational goal is to develop him as a center. So, that can certainly work. I do think that. I think he could be. I think he could be playing wing in the NHL right now.
Yeah,
and be scoring
trigger wing.
Yeah, that's exactly in a nutshell. And as a center, I think he still has some work to do defensively, just to polish things up to be ready for the NHL for those defensive responsibilities. He's always going to be shoot first. He can pass too. He makes he can fake a shot sometimes and find an open guy, or he makes a really good shot pass kind of play. Yeah. He's not a distributor in the way that a Brink or a Frost is, just as a pure passer. But if you overplay him, he can burn. He can burn you by getting the puck to a teammate too. But he can score from quite a bit of distance actually, and you can look at some of these plays and go, okay, well, you're not going to score like that in the NHL. I think he's one of those guys who's going to score in the NHL on goal where you're just going to go, hey, it's Gauthier. He's a threat every time he's over the blue line, and he is.
And again, to me, it's you go, well, a lot of people don't score from that distance in the NHL, but again, he's not scoring from that distance because he's overpowering guys. Yeah. He's scoring because I think he is again disguising the release and not allowing goalies to track. So he's finding a lane where a goalie's looking around the guy and he's shooting on the other side. Yeah, there's obvious wow factor there with Michkov, and there could be he could be one of those guys that every time he jumps over the boards, like you move your butt from inside your seat to the very edge because you never know what's going to happen. But there's a little bit of wow factor in more of like a John LeClaire type of way with Cutter Gauthier than there is than you would think.
For sure, and with better speed too.
Yeah,
because Gauthier can turn on the afterburners and really surprise you by blowing by somebody too. So he has a whole arsenal offensively that it's very exciting to watch.
Yeah, we'll be keeping an eye. We'll keep everybody updated on those two players as we go on throughout as well. And maybe next week we'll check in on Bonk and Denver Barkey and some others in the prospect pool and as well. So stay tuned. We'll do that next week. All right. Read Bill's work at PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyBuzz.com. Flyers back at it tomorrow. We'll preview Flyers Sharks tomorrow on a brand new episode of Flyers Daily.